Okay, once again I'm back trying to find some of these little wonder records that will actually play halfway decent. Surprisingly, I found one. And it's the Tipperary songs. A long way to Tipperary. Band and vocal chorus. Again, they don't even name the band or the vocal chorus. It's just band and vocal. I guess this was kind of like generic music. I don't know. But it's a little wonder record, and it's an interesting little oddity from long ago. Tiny little thing, and I'm trying to get one of the tiny little phonographs to play it. This particular one is the Peter Pan. Now, I tried the Pixie Gripper, and it really didn't like these records. Don't know why. It just was not a good combination. This one's playing well, but the low volume, not that these ever have high volume, I mean, not with a horn that tiny. These are novelty phonographs, and these are novelty records. So I figure we put the two together, see if we can get something that actually works. And we'll give it a shot here. You'll see if you can hear it on camera. I'm pointing the horn towards the camera this time, so maybe it'll play. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Whoopsie. Okay. We got to be careful here because this is a real... Oh, you know what? I didn't even put a needle on it. That's not too smart because they don't tend to play very well without a needle. I don't know why, but they don't. And we're going to use a loud tone needle on this because there is literally no volume on these things. Very little volume, even with a loud tone. Even with a large reproducer and a large diaphragm, the horn is very tiny. The camera is bigger than the horn on this machine. So, get her spin it up again, and we'll give it a shot. Sorry about the clicking noise you hear it. That is just a characteristic of this type of... Can't really call it a turntable. I guess it's a record support. Very little room to put this needle down on this record. Yeah, I would not call that high fidelity in any form. I doubt these records had much of it anyway when they were new, but now they're pretty heavily worn. And this one at least plays. Some of the other ones were so bad you can't even make out what they're saying. Display items, I guess, and it does kind of explain why they had a fairly inexpensive price tag on them. Yeah, they're in good condition physically, but down in the grooves, they're pretty worn. Not really sure who the market was for these back in the day, just a novelty item. Somebody didn't want to be hauling around a heavy phonograph, something like that, into the wood. That's not heavy, but a larger phonograph into the woods of the park somewhere. So they got these little tiny records and a little tiny machine, and they said, you know, you don't have to strain yourself. You can just carry this little thing along. What they didn't tell you was, how would you possibly hear that thing playing over the sound of bird calls and people talking and everything else? This was well before the age of, earphones and all that kind of stuff. All right, let's crank it up, which is a little bit of a pain because you're going to hang it over the table. Turn it around first. This has a brand new spring in it, but it's a tiny little spring, so it's really not going to play a 10-inch record after that. So we'll just crank it up again. I suppose if you were in the house and playing this on a coffee table or something, you'd be able to hear it, but I'll show you what I mean when you play the 10-inch record. And this is with a rebuilt reproducer and a motor that's been fully serviced, but the horn is so tiny that it is really hard to get any kind of volume out of this. It's a pain to get the records on it too. Come on, where's the hole? There we go. And change the needle. That's always important because, whoops, lost the needle. Not good. Give it all the help it could possibly get. Oh, even Buster doesn't like the sound. Huh, Buster? Yeah, I know. Not an HMV 102. Give me a break. Okay. Now, it started on its own, but it's dragging on the brakes, so we got to take care of that. Get rid of that noise. There we go. And you hear the clicking on there too. It's because the record wobbles on that little cross piece they give you. Like I said, it's a novelty phonograph, so it's not going to be perfect. But it does actually play, so. Okay. Boy, if there was ever disapproval from a cat, yeah. I don't think he likes this one, or at least not the sound. But for what they are, I guess you really can't ask for much. I mean, a little box camera phonograph is not going to give you a concert sound that you'd expect from a 101 or a 102 or any of the Victrolas. It was just a novelty. I wonder how this would play with an electrically recorded record. Let me see if I got one handy here. I had Joe Stafford from the other day sitting around somewhere. I'll put the camera down here for a second and do a little searching. See what we can find in the way of a later record. See if it gives it a little more volume out of there. It probably does, but no, I guess I must have gotten rid of that one somewhere. It's been put away. I usually do that so I don't end up playing the same record 2 and 3 times, not realizing I already played it. It's bad enough when that happens with the duplicates. Let's see. Now this machine's got a tiny little Swiss motor in it and a tiny little spring that's smaller than the ones that they used later on. I mean, it's strong enough to get the job done, and the spring is actually brand new in this, because when I got it, the spring was broken. It was snapped. Kind of surprised that somebody would play it enough that they actually did that. Ooh, there's a Bluebird record. What's this one? Let's see. Rumba Son, and it's the same old Shillelagh. I think I did play that one before, but we'll try it again. But first, we gotta crank up the machine. Let's see. I can't imagine really playing a machine like this so many times that a spring actually breaks. I mean, a spring could break for any number of reasons. You know, if you're using it when it's like 5 degrees in the room or something like that, metal doesn't like that. And you can definitely break a spring doing that. But usually they're in pretty good shape. Okay. Let's see. Let's put this old Bluebird on there. Harry's Tavern Band. I know I did play that one before, but that's all right. We're just doing a little test here. I want to see how if the volume picks up a little bit with a record from the 1940s here. I doubt it. I didn't show the little tiny horn before. See, and compare it as the record is the horn, a little tiny thing. All right, let's turn that on. A little awkward. These don't have a regular brake. It's just a little knob. You got to reach around the front, under the crank, and turn it on. Okay, let's try not to drop this on the record. We got some volume out of it that time. Got so much volume it actually vibrated the parts of the machine. Did you hear it? A little like buzz, a little of that. And go out. First I thought it was the reproducer, but then I realized what it was. It's actually vibrating from such sound. Well, now we know the secret of these little tiny phonographs. Play electrically recorded records on them and they're fine. Too bad that when these things came out, there were no electrically recorded records. Maybe I'll play the flip side of that. See how that one sounds. But, once again, we do have to turn the machine around and crank it up. Probably should take the record off before I do that, otherwise I'm going to smack it and knock it to the floor, and that'll be the end of Rumba Son and the Shillelagh Man there. Oopsie. Kind of hard to crank these little machines because you got to hold on to them while you do it. There goes my mask onto the floor. How nice. Gonna need that later when I go out. Now, just to look at what I'm talking about for this little knob here, that's the brake, which at the moment actually is holding. And that's your speed control, but this is the brake. So you turn that and it releases it. You got to turn it quite a bit because if you leave it in too long, leave it in too far, it tends to rub a little bit and you'll hear it doing that. So, turn that back around. And of course the horn just folds up in there when it's all put together. Get rid of the old needle. Here we go. And we'll put a brand new one in there. Which you do for every play of the record. Oh, see, and then you got to reach around the front under the record to get the little knob, turn it, back it all the way out. She starts to spin. And then very carefully find the edge of the record and put this down. I guess this one meets with cat approval too. We'll let that wind down. You see what was happening there? You can hear the buzz when it was hitting the high notes. It's vibrating on those arms. The record's actually bouncing on it. But with a machine like this, this is really the only alternative to having any kind of a real wide enough turntable, I guess you'd call it. Some of these machines did have a tiny little round disc that went on there. I don't know that that's better, but you know, when you buy something that's a novelty, you cannot expect it to take the place of, You know, the big machines and stuff like that. It's just not going to happen. I'm even surprised they put such a big reproducer on these, because that actually uses the same diaphragm as the Victrola number 4. And this was in, I believe, the early 1920s. So, although Columbia was using that diaphragm well back into the teens. So, that's a lot of reproducer for really a tiny horn. You know, this whole machine is the size of a box camera. Man, what can I compare it to here? Show you a comparison. Okay, here's the everybody knows what a 10-inch Victrola record. Everybody watching this channel knows what a 10-inch Victrola record is. Look at the size difference. The record is bigger than the machine when it's folded up, really. The Pixie Griffa's a little bit bigger, but it actually has a horn that's even smaller. And really don't get too much out of it. But it does answer the question about what you got to do to get volume out of one of these little machines. But a 1940s record, I do not recommend doing that on a regular basis. You will wear the heck out of your records. These don't have exactly the most perfect tracking in the world, and it's not good. These are heavy reproducer, big needle. You will, you know, once or twice, you're not even a dozen times. You're not going to hurt it, but you do it a lot, you're going to start to produce wear in these records, and that's not a good thing. You will wear them out. But there you go. Here's a look at the Little Wonder record. Total failure, almost. And the Bluebird. And, oh, I didn't tell you what the other one was. That was the American Quartet, by the way, on the other record. The Victor Batwing. America Here's My Boy. Oh, I didn't play that America Here's My Boy. I played Let's All Be Americans Now. Was that what I played? I think so, yeah. Let's All Be Americans Now. The American Quartet. Which is roughly contemporary with the machine. A few years older, but you get the idea of what kind of records they would have played on something like this back then and how they would have sounded. I'm sure, you know, some of the dance band music would have been a little bit louder, volume, higher. Doesn't really matter to fidelity because you're not getting that out of these machines. You want fidelity, you put it on your Victrola, you know, the real machine at home, not the novelty you bought to impress your friends at the park or your girlfriend or whatever. All right, there you go. That's the experiment with Little Wonder records over for the moment, until I find some cleaner ones that might actually play a little bit better.